Okay, well, so let's just refresh our memory over here. So yesterday we learned about when he gave priority to one Naziris over another Naziris, how it works. So if he gave priority to his Naziris that will be triggered when his son was born, and then he made another Naziris, so the halacha is if his son is born in the middle of his Naziris, he has to stop counting his own Naziris, and he has to start counting Naziris for his son. And then when he finishes the Naziris for his son, he could resume his own Naziris. And the Gemara discussed what would be if it was with days, where you knew about it, and the Gemara had a whole series of shilas that Rava asked. The only shilah that the Gemara was poshet was the first shilah about if he was makabel first on the Naziris of Shloishim that would first start in 20 days from today, and then he was makabel in the Naziris of 100 that should start immediately. And the Gemara brings a brisa that paskins that in fact the Naziris of Meah starts right away. But then there's a shaila if there was a Nazir Olam in the mix, or if there's Nazir Shimshin in the mix, or if someone said Kemoisha b'Shiva ba'Adar. Those all remained besuffic. Okay, gewaltig. Then we had the shaila of it was v'nitma b'mei benoi. If he became tummy in the middle of the second set of Naziris, do we say that also impacts the Naziris that's around the Naziris of his son? If you hold it's soiser, it's not soiser, and they have the same achloikis if the person who was a Nazir also became a Mitzayra, which also suspends the counting of his Naziris. Then we had the two cases of Nitma B'Yom Gidul Sar, which is after the days of his Naziris, but before he could bring his korban, because he still has to wait till his hair grows in. And there we had a machlokes Rav and Shmuel. Rav held it wasn't soiser, and Shmuel held it was soiser. And then we had Reb Chista who said, Shem Kidesh Sar Bedam, if you already brought the korban, but you didn't take your haircut yet, and then you became tamei. He says there's no eitzah for you to be mekai in the mitzvah. Thank you so much. Of giluch shal nazir, but avada you are going to be ois nazir, and you're not locked into your nazirs forever. Then we had Rabbi Yosy B'Chanina's halacha, who said that before you discharge your naziris and you bring your karbanis, if it's after the period of naziris and you violated the Naziris through drinking wine, you won't come malchus. If you violated the Naziris through taking a haircut, you won't come malchus. But if you violated the Naziris by getting tama, you do get malchus. The Gemara shlog up Rabbi B'Chanina because we had a brisa that said b'ferish that you get malchus for any one of the violations before you bring your korban. And then we got up to the Mishnah. So we'll start the Mishnah now. Harani Nazir lichashiyeheli ben. The Nazirs that we're familiar with. I'm going to become a Nazir when I have a child. And the Nazir Meriyim. So the primary Naziris was lichashiyeheli ben. The secondary Naziris is Meriyim. Now what happens if it's noilad loy ben ad shivim? He had a son up until day 70, where he could still count the full 30 for his son, and it will still end no later than his 100-day Naziris. Zok the Mishnah loy hafsid klum. He didn't lose anything, and that means that he can actually count the two sets of Naziris concurrently. So at the end of the 100 days, he has completed both his 100-day Naziris as well as his 30-day Naziris that was triggered by the birth of his son.
Yesterday, you only need 20 days left over.
Who's talking about leftover?
Why only 70? Why does it have to be running concurrently?
Oh, because if the Naziris of his son went past 100 days, then they're not concurrent anymore, because now he has to wait till the Naziris of his son times out. What we learned yesterday is sure you only mashlim, you only have to be mashlim what you've done, what you're missing, but the chiddush here is that last 30 days actually works for both nazirs. However, la'achar shivim, what if it was after day 70? So the pashat of pshat of la'achar shivim means day 71. Then soisher shivim. Then it's going to be soiser the shivim. Now the Toshvis takes out the word shivim. It's soiser, which means it can no longer be concurrent. So you count 30 days, and after you count the 30 days, then you could resume counting the nazirs of 100. She'ein tag lachas pachas mishloshim yon, because there's no nazirs less than 30 days, and therefore the nazirs that he was makabel for his son is going to extend past the naziris of his own for 100. So come to Rav to Zogan a massive chiddush. Rav yoim shivim oila lukan ulakan. What happens if the baby is born on day 70? Right? So day 70, let's think about this. Day 70, in the middle of the day, the baby is born in the middle of the day. So that day now, day 70 is going to count as day 1 of the naziris of the naziris for his son. So if day 70 is day 1, what is day 30 of that naziris? That would be day 99, right? Now, because of that, what would happen on day 99? On day 99, it would have terminated the naziris for his son, but his own naziris still goes to day 100. Zok Rav a massive chiddush that since you're splitting the day and you're making part of it is going to be the naziris of the 30 days, you look at it like it's 2 days. So now day 70 is 2 days. So Kum Techesh day 99 is really day 100, even for his 100-day naziris. That is the off the charts chiddush that Rav is saying. That even the 100-day naziris can count day 70 as 2 days. That's a moedik chiddush. Because if it wasn't for the baby being born, you'd have to count all 100 days. Since the baby was born, it splits up day 70 into 2 days, and therefore now at day 99, he's already 100 days in. Zok to Gemara, this is the Kamush Sharf Gemara. He's telling us the time is really going faster than it's going. He gets an extra day. Zok to Gemara, Tanan we learned in our Mishnah, Noiled loy ad shivim, if the baby was born up until day 70, loy hifsid klum. Frank the Gemara, loy hifsid klum, not only did he not lose, he actually gains a full day. If the baby was born before day 70, that day gets split into 2 days, and in fact, he actually gains a day. If the Mishnah would held like Rav, that you split the day into 2 days, the day of the birth of his child, well then isgure miskar. It's not appropriate to use a nusach if you don't lose, you're gaining. Ella, in order to protect Rav from the kasha of this Mishnah, we have to say that when it said it's lav dafka, because it didn't even need to say the ratio. The ratio that if he has a child up until day 70, that's pushed. It doesn't need to say that. Why did it say lo hifsid? It's because the second half, la achar shivim soiser. So there it's hifsid. Umshum dekatoni seifa achar shivim soiser. And again, we take out the word shivim. Umshum dekatoni seifa achar shivim soiser. Therefore, katani ratio shivim. That's the only reason why it mentioned at shivim lo hifsid. But avada, the way Rav would learn the Mishnah, is at shivim, it's actually iskur misker, he'll save a day. So we've just dodged one bullet, but there's going to be another bullet coming. Tashmami Seifa. We're going to bring a rye from the Seifa that you cannot say that 1 day is going to act as 2 days. Because what does the Seifa say? Noilar achar shivim. So if you say Noilar achar shivim means day 71, right? Would you agree that Noilar achar shivim means day 71? Right? Noilar achar shivim soiser. Why is it Soiser? If day 71 acts as 2 days, well then let's think about it. Day 71 acts as 2 days. What is day 30? That's day 100. So then what's the problem? Why is it Hifsid? Once again, you should still be able to keep two concurrent Nazirison. So you have a raya from the Sefer of the Mishnah, not like Rav. Let's see the Ran. Tashmami Sefer, Pirish Mafsid. Why is that? Usvirle, the Pashut of Pshat of the Achashivim, have it Perushibim Shivim Bechod. So the Mishnah is saying that if the baby was born on day 71, we don't have concurrent Nazirison, one is extending past the other. But according to Rafik Toshvis, which is the Gemara asking, my mafsid klum l'Rav b'lei disabein. Why is anything lost from the fact that the baby was born? In this case, day 71, oila lakan, which means oila nami l'tchilas hanaziris debain. Day 71 will be day 1 of the Naziris debain. Nimtza kilam joim debain. When will day 30 of the Bain be? Kolim b'yom kuf. It'll end on day 100. That's still within his 100 days. And he could make his giluach on day 101 for both. If the baby was born on day 71, he could still make his giluach on day 101. Day 100 will be 30. It'll also be the last day of the Naziris. And on day 101, you make the giluach. So Harei Lahif said klum. So why does the Sefer say that on day 71 there is a hefsid? Zokt Gemara, my achar da'achar. When it says achar shivim, it doesn't mean 71. It means day 72. And day 72, for sure, the Naziris of the 30 days for a son will extend past the 100 days. But if the baby was born on day 71, are you telling me that they can still run concurrently? If that's the case, why did the Mishnah say that it's lo'hifsid only until day 70? We're saying that even on day 71, there's still an allowance of the concurrent Naziris. Harmit lo'isasar. No, you see, our Mishnah clearly does not hold like Rav. Shmamina achar is mamish, meaning on day 71, if a baby was born, there's no concurrent Naziris. And in fact, the Mishnah is contradicting Rav. And look at these words. V'chein masnisin l'Rav shmamina. So you would normally touch that is that the Mishnah is like Rav. But here in Lashon Nazir Mishuna, it means the Mishnah is not like Rav. I didn't make that up. That's what Tosha says. So now we have Rav, who's an independent. Now you could say Rav Tana who Polik, but the Gemara wants to try to find a Tana who Rav can hang his hat on. Zok the Gemara, Rav Kaman Omer L'Shmaitze. Who did Rav say is Allah like? Now whether or not Rav can argue on the Mishnah, Rav holds that Tanahu Polik and he can argue on the Mishnah. Rabbi Yochanan held that Rav couldn't argue on the Mishnah. So there's a big kasha. Rav, Rabbi Yochanan, we normally pass like Rabbi Yochanan. So if that's the case, so who asked this? Someone asked this kasha to the Briskerov. Somebody asked this kasha that I'm asking now to the Briskerov. I forgot who asked it, but he asked the Briskerov, if Rabbi Yochanan holds that you don't say Rav Tanu Polik, how come we could pass like Rav sometimes against the Mishnah? We should pass like Rabbi Yochanan that Rav cannot argue with the Mishnah. So the Brisker Rav told him, or maybe it was a Chaim, it was one of the Brisker Ravs, I don't remember who was, told him a huge chiddush that when we say that an Amir cannot argue with a Tana, it doesn't mean that he cannot technically argue with the Tana. It means they accepted upon themselves that we're no longer going to argue with Tanai. But technically they could argue. That's how he wanted to learn. So Mamela, Even though Rabbi Yochanan held, you don't say Rav Tanu Polik, but even Al Tana Moira, he can argue. So who is Rav going to hold like? Can we find a Tana, in fact, that will hold of this Mixus Yom Kakuloi, this concept that you split a day and you make it into 2 days? And we're not going to be able to find a case exactly by Naziris, but we're going to shop around through Shas and try to find other places where you find 1 day access 2 days. Ilay Abishol. If it's going to be according to Abishol, who has a sheet in Hilchas Avelis. There's none we learned. One who triggers a chiyuv of sitting Shiva 3 days before a Yom Tov. So the halach is batlam in the menu gzeira Shiva. Now we hold even Erev Yom Tov, it's batlam in menu gzeira Shiva. But the Tanakama of Abishol that we're quoting now holds you had to have sat Shiva for 3 days. Shmoyne Yomim kodim l'regel. What if the Shiva was over the day before Erev Yom Tov, and now Erev Yom Tov could be the first day of your Shloshim, then Batla Mimenu Gzer Shloshim, and therefore, Umutter L'Saper Erev HaRegel, even though it's before Yom Tov, that day of Erev Yom Tov is really your day of Shloshim, you're allowed to take a haircut on that Erev Yom Tov. But because of COVID Yom Tov, but the Imloi Siper Erev HaRegel, but if you didn't take advantage of this right that you have to take a haircut, l'kovid Yom Tov, well then you lost your whole exemption to the shloshim, and then also l'saper achar regel. So if you are going to take a haircut l'kovid Yom Tov, then we will waive the shloshim. But if you don't take a haircut, then we don't waive the shloshim. Similar to if you cut your nails on the Erev Yom Tov, you can cut your nails on Chalamoid. But if you don't, you cannot. Abishol is who we're going to focus on. Abishol Aimer, Afilu loy siper koydem regel muter l'saper acharek. First of all, he argues on this knas, so to speak. Even if you didn't take a haircut before Yom Tov, your shloshim is bottled when Yom Tov comes. Shekashem shemitzvah shloisha mivatelas gzeres shiva. Just like 3 days is mevatel the gzeres shiva, kach mitzvah shiva mivatelas gzeres shloisha. So the Tosfos tells us that Rabbi Shol is arguing with the Tanakama in 2 points. So I'm going to look here at the Tosfos. Rabbi Shol Aimer afilu leisiper erva regel mutal lesaper acher regel polak Tanakama. First of all, he's arguing on the Tanakama about this. The savar the regel mevatel the whole Indian, even if you didn't take a haircut every Yom Tov. Upolak b'achriti, but Rabbi Shol is arguing on the Chachamim in another point. Shekashem shemitzvahs gimel mevatelas gzer zayin kach mitzvah zayin mevatelas gzer lamed upolak Tanakama dematruches. The Tanakama said that Erev Yom Tov has to be day 8 for Yom Tov to stop shloishim. Abishol says even if Erev Yom Tov is day 7, the Yom Tov will still be mevatel shloishim. So we see from here, my time at Abishol, how could it mevatel gzer shloishim if the shloishim didn't start yet? You're still doing the shiva. I'm sorry? We pass in 1 day. Yeah, we pass in 1 day. That's right. My time with Abishol, lav mishum de kasovar shivi oila lakan ulakan. It must be because Abishol holds that the 7th day of Shiva, the first half of the day, the Misa Yoiv Kakuloi is going to act as the Shiva, and the second half of the day is going to act as beginning the Shloshim, which will then get interrupted by the Yom. So you see a concept of 1 day can act as 2 days. So this is where maybe Rav got it from. Zok Timor, you can't bring a right from Avelis. Dilma Atkan Lekamer Abishol Elaba Avelis Zayin Derabana. By Avelis Zayin is Derabana. And Tosfos speaks out, and not everybody holds like Tosfos. The Minat Torah Einoi Elo Yoim Rishon. The Chsiv K'Chsiv Acharisa K'Yemar. Midiraisa. There's only 1 day of Shiva. And that is only if the mess was buried on the day of the Misa. But if the mace is buried not on the day of the Misa, there's not even 1 day of Shiva. Midaraisa. So where did Abishol say that the 7th day can act as 2 days? That's by Avelis, which is only the Rabbanan. Aval Nazir Daraisa. But by Naziris, we're talking about the Araisis over here. Loi, who said that you could say this halacha that 1 day acts as 2 days? Ella Rav Damak Rabbi Yosy. So let's find a different Mikar to this idea of splitting a day. And we're going to find it from a different place. The Tanya of Yosy Yomer. Shemerish Yom Keneged Yom. The halacha is the 11 days that a woman is not supposed to see Dam Nida. If she sees Dam, she's Tameh that day. And the next day, she has to be Shomer that day as a Noki. And if she's a Noki on the next day, on day 2, then she could toivel, and now she's Tahor. So what if she was in such a situation, but day 2 was also Erev Pesach? So she wants to be able to partake in the Korban Pesach. She saw Dam Ziva the day before Erev Pesach, not a problem, because if she's clean Erev Pesach, then if she's clean Erev Pesach, she'll be able to participate in the Korban Pesach by night. So what happened was that she was a Shomer Yom Keneged Yom. So Erev Pesach, so far so good, she was clean. Vibal, she was clean. She was Nismana in the Korban Pesach. She was included in the group. Sheshachtu v'zarki b'sheni shalom. On day 2, which is the day that she's being Shemeres, as a day of Noki, that day they shechted for her. She was part of the Korban Pesach Chabura. The Achakach Rosa, and then later in the day she saw Dam. Messes her up now. Now she could no longer eat from the Korban Pesach. She cannot eat from the Korban Pesach because she's now Tomei again, and she has to now keep day 3 as a day of Nikim. But since at the beginning of the day she was still Tahor up until the point where she saw Dam, therefore we say that she was Yoitzer of the Korban Pesach, Upetura Milas Pesach Sheni. We still say that she brought the Korban Pesach. My time is Rabbi Yosy. What is the Svar of Rabbi Yosy? Mishum de Kasovar, I'm reading the Girsa according to how the Rishonim learn it. Mishum de Kasovar, or Lav Mishum Mitzvah Zayom Kakuloi, U Mikan Ula Abahumatam. He holds Mitzvah Zayom Kakuloi and Mikan Ula Abahumatam. Now this woman who was Tomei because she saw Dam Nida on day 1. So on day 2, she Shomer Yom Keneged Yom, she has to be Nochi. So the question is, she's Tahor that day. If she's not Soiser, if she's Soiser and she has a Riyah on day 2, she's Tomei. The question is, what do you say? Do you say she's Tomei Limafreya because it shows that she never was Tahor? It's Igloy Milsa Limafreya that she was Tomei the whole day, or do you say no? She's Tahor up until the point that she sees Dam. So the Gemara is saying that Rabbi Yosy holds that she's Tahor up until the point that she sees Dam. So Mikanu Labo Matame, she's only Tame after she sees Dam, but in the morning, for instance, where she hadn't yet seen Dam, she's still Tahor, and therefore you could split the day. And you could say that at the beginning of the day, she was perfectly Tahor and eligible to be part of the Chabura of her Korban Pesach. And even though at the end of the day she's Tameh and she can't actually eat the Korban Pesach, but she was still Yaitz. So therefore, we have a raya by a deraisa, like a Korban Pesach. By Ziva, you split a day. So that could be is the Makar of Rav. Frek the Gemara, you cannot say that that's Pshat in Rabbi Yosy, that you split a day, because we have a steer in Rabbi Yosy himself. When we saw Rabbi Yosy, can Rabbi Yosy possibly hold that you split the day? The first half of the day he's Tar, and the second half of the day she's Tar. I'm sorry. The first half of the day she is Tar, and the second half of the day she's Tamei. You cannot say that because Vatanya we have another brayso that quotes Rabbi Yosy. Rabbi Yosy Emer Zov. The way a Zov works.
Let's say if she touched something in the morning before she was tummy, it doesn't become tummy, even though afterwards.
According to Rabbi Yosy, she won't become tummy, but according to the Chum, it will be.
It would be,
Yeah, sure, because he's talking about prayer. The Gemara is going to specifically discuss that, so I'm happy you brought that up. For Tanya Rabbi Yosy Yomer, Zov Bal Shtei Riyos. The way a Zov works, a male, the halachas of Ziva by a male are completely different than that of a female. As a matter of fact, when the Rambam lists off the mitzvahs, Ziva by a woman is one mitzvah, Zov by a man is another mitzvah, but Tzaras is the same mitzvah for male and for female, because Tzaras has exactly the same halachas for male and female. But Ziva is very different. So the way Ziva works is if he has one Re'iyah, he's a Shemer Yoim Keneged Yoim, but if he has a second Re'iyah, there he already has to be tamei for 7 days. He needs shiva nekiyim. By a woman, until her third re'iyah, there's no shiva nekiyim. So here we have a zav who saw twice, which means he has to count shiva nekiyim. And sheshachtu v'zoku olav b'shvi. He counted shiva nekiyim, and he was on day 7, which happened to have been erev Pesach, and everything's going good. He's going to toivel this afternoon, and he's going to be tar, and he'll be able to eat the korban Pesach. Everything's going good. Or v'chein shemer yoim keneged yoim sheshachtu v'zoku aleha. The same case as we had earlier. And then later in the day, they saw dam or ziva, and they were soiser. Zokt the brisa. Afalpi shemetamin mishkavu moishav l'mafraya, like Moti suggested, even though now anything that they sat on or that they laid on, even early in the day, before they saw the dam or the ziva, it will be tamei. So you see clearly that we're not splitting the day. That once they had a re'iyah during the day, even the period of time earlier in the day before they had the re'iyah, they're considered tamei. And now it's really shver. Yet they're still paturin milasas pesach sheni. So now, first of all, Yosy Minei Ubei is very shver, because how do you make these two things correspond? If you're saying we look at it like he was tamei l'mafreya, so how could it possibly be that he was yoytze his korban pesach? And for the Gemara, my l'mafreya midrabanan. Me'ikar adin, they're only telling mikana lava. Midrabanan, they said that anything he sat on or that he laid on will be tamei. But midaraisa, avada, you split today. So we still have our raya that we were looking for, that you could split the day in half. Hakanami mistavra, and it's logical to say that this halacha of mitama mishkav moshav l'mafreya is only a chomer derabbanan. Hakanami mistavra. Tisol kedaydach midaraisa. If you're going to hold that midaraisa, it's tamei l'mafreya. Well, then amai ptur milasus pesach sheni. It wouldn't make sense. So it must be that it's only midarabanan. Zok tomorrow, that much you don't have a raya, because I could even learn this to tumah daraisa. Lo'ilam emalach tumah daraisa. So if this person is tamei midaraisa from the beginning of the day, how could he possibly have been yoytze the mitzvah of korban pesach? And for the Gemara, I have eitzah to haim deziva hitiru. What is the halacha if you were sitting on a chair during the processing of your korban pesach, and you think you're tahar, and then later in the afternoon, after your korban pesach is processed, you find out that there was a mace buried below your chair, but there's no way you could have possibly known it. There was a mace in the time. There's a special pasuk that says that you are yoytze the korban pesach. So Zok the Gemara, maybe Ziva is just like that, because you have no idea if you're going to see Dam later. You have no idea if you're going to be Saishu later. So maybe it's like Tumas at the Haim, and even though you are Tameh, such a Tumah will not interfere with your ability to bring the korban pesach. So you don't have a raya that is Derabanan, but we can say that it's Derabanan according to Rabbi Yosy, and Rabbi Yosy would hold that the Tumah only comes halfway through the day. In the beginning of the day, we consider him tar, and he's Yosy the korban pesach. In the second half of the day, he's Tameh. So you see, Rabbi Yosy splits a day in half. Now, let's think about this for a second. Every time a Zov touches something, he's metamed as well. Why didn't they make the Gzeir Derabanan on all of the types of tumas that he'll transmit that should be from the beginning of the day? Was punkt tumas mishkav and tumas moshav. So the halacha is tumas mishkav and moshav are very unique. Why are they unique? Because whenever tumah is transmitted from one thing to another, it always goes down the madrig. So if a mace is a via voice, if you touch a mace, you become an avatuma. If you as an avatuma touch something, you'll make it into a rishon. As you transmit the tumah from body to body, from person to person, from item to item, it goes down the madrig. That's how we know. But there's two exceptions to this rule. There's tumas mishkav and moshav. Do you know that the mishkav and moshav of Zov becomes an avatuma, which is the same tumah as the Zov himself? The other exception to this rule is cherav hareyu kechalal. A piece of metal, any metal keli that touches a mace becomes an avia voisatum. Takes on the same tumah as the mace itself. So Rav Lichtenstein, who is he Zatzal, he was Hishai Shachner's hero. He was like the Rashiva. I think he's an Edom of Yosy. He was an Edom of Rabbi Yosy, and he was like a Rashiva of the Mizrachi yeshivas. But he had a very good Einfach, and he said as follows: there's a difference between Mishkav and Moshav and a regular Tumah. Tumah that's being transmitted from one thing to the next, that goes down to Madrega. But could be Tumah Mishkav and Moshav. It's not Tumah because Tumah was transmitted from the Zov to what he sat on. Tumah was transmitted from the Zov to what he lay on. No, maybe the Torah is giving a new din Tumah. A Mishkav Azov is Tumah. A Moshav Azov is Tumah. It's not that it's getting its Tumah from the Zov. The same way the Torah says Azov is Tumah, the Torah could say that a Mishkav Azov is Tumah. But it's not getting its Tumah from the Zov, it's an independent Tumah. So it makes perfect sense why that should be Tamil Mafreya. Because technically it was a Mishkav Azov. It was a Moshav Azov. It doesn't have to get its Tumah from the Zov. So therefore, even though the Zov was Tahar, it's possible, even though the Zov was Tahar in the morning, it's possible that it's a Mishkav should be Tamil because the Mishkav isn't getting its Tumah from the Zov. Well, that was my interesting info. Because Zok Gemara weiter. Va'af Reb Yosy Sovar L'Mafreya Midrabanan. Reb Yosy also holds that this in the Brisa, that it said that Tumas of Mishkav and Moshe are going to be L'Mafreya even from before the person was Soiser, that's a Durabanan. We see this from the following. The Tanya Rabbi Yosy Amar, Rabbi Yosy said, Avol Haraya Zav B'Shvi Shaloi Soiser Es Shalofanav. So let me see the Bach to get the reading properly. The Tanya Rabbi Yosy Amar Zav Haraya B'Shvi Shaloi. A Zav who saw on the seventh day, so he Soiser his Shivnikiyim, Soiser Es Shalofanav. It's Soiser his Shivnikiyim, right? It's just like a woman who sees Dam on the day 7. It's Soiser the Shivnikiyim. But Rabbi Yochanan told him, Loi Nister Ela Yoimai. No, if a Zav sees on day 7, he only loses one day. Rabbi Yochanan is very schwer to understand. Why would you only lose one day? Manavshach. Isasar, if seeing on the 7th day, even though you have a mixed Siyam Kakulai, but if you see on the 7th day is a stira to the Shivnikiyim, well then Kula Sasar. So it should be Sasar, all of the Shivnikiyim. And Eloi Sasar, and if you're going to say that since part of the 7th day he was already Shomer with the Hira, and therefore the 7 days are over, and therefore it's not Sasar, well then it shouldn't even be Sasar one day. So how could we understand Rabbi Yochanan's Shita that if a Zav saw on day 7, it's only Sasar the last day? Ela Ema, that's not what Rabbi Yochanan said, because it simply doesn't make sense that he would have said that. Ela Ema like Nister v'lo Yoimai. Rabbi Yochanan is saying that a Zav who saw on day 7, since the beginning of the day he was Shomer b'Tahira, it's not Soiser at all. It's not Soiser at all, his Naziris. Zok to Gemara. And I just want to just focus on Tosfos over here. Kleimer afilu yoimai. If he saw on the 7th day, he already had part of the 7th day, and that's enough for his Shivanikim. And therefore he's no longer a Zov. Zok to Gemara, v'amalei Rabbi Yosy, and he was told that Rabbi Yosy told Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Yosy holds like you. What does that mean? The Amar Mikanu Labamatama. That holds that when you're Soiser middle of the day, it's not Soiser the day Lamafreya, it's only the Soiser the day Mikanu Laba. And that makes sense. That's why you, Rabbi Yochanan, hold that since part of the 7th day he was able to be Shomer b'Tahira, he got a Shivanikimin. Rabbi Yosy Lamafreya Hu the Amar. Didn't Rabbi Yosy say that it's Matama Mishkav Moshe Lamafreya? So you have a raya that since Rabbi Yosy uses Rabbi Yosy to explain Rabbi Yochanan's Shita, you see clearly he must hold that the Tumah Lamafreya is only a Tumah D'Rabbanan. Beautiful. So let's hear Rabbi Yosy. Rabbi Yosy, let's understand Rabbi Yosy. Michti. Savar Mikzas Hayoim Kekulai. If you hold Mikzas Hayoim Kekulai, so let's think about it. How does a woman become a Zava Gedola? she sees dam on day 1, and then she sees dam on day 2, and then she sees dam on day 3. The problem is, if she sees dam on day 3, when did she see dam? Let's say at noon. If she sees dam at noon on day 3, well, she had a mikzas hayoim. Rabbi Yosy holds that if you even count a mikzas hayoim, you have your tahira. So oibazoi zova gemura the maisi karban heichi mishkachasla. How could she ever become a zova gedola? Even the chaziv of palga the yoima. Since when did she see ziva? Middle of the day. So idich palga the yoima salak lalashimar. Why can't you use the first half of the day as a shemira with tahira? Just like Rabbi Yosy is saying that if a zav was soiser on day 7, we consider he completed his Shiva Nikiyim because of the first part of the 7th day where he didn't see Dam yet, or he didn't see Ziva yet. Well, then every time a woman sees 3 times, it's as if she didn't see 3 times in a row because there was a Shimur at the beginning of the day. Zok the Gemara, we have 2 simple solutions for that. Iba Isema, Dikashalfa Tosayomi. Maybe she was dripping Dam, she was flowing Dam for 3 days straight. So therefore, there was absolutely not even a mixus hayoim that was nucky. The Ibayisema, the Chazya Tlas Hayoimi, Samach L'Shkiyas Achama. What happened was, every day of the 3 days, she saw Dam from right before Shkia till right after Shkia, which means there was never a mixus hayoim that she was tahar, because right when the day was ushered in, she became Tomei, and at the end of the day, again, she became Tomei. So, Mitzvah Yom would either be the first half of the day or the second half of the day. This woman, at the beginning of each day and at the end of each day, she was seeing Dam. Therefore, there was no Mitzvah Yom that she was able to rack up, and that's the only way she would be able to have Ziva Gedola. Okay, Baruch Hashem, Bili Neder, Hadin Alach, Hareni Nazir, Hadin Allah Hareni Nazir, Hadin Allah Hareni Nazir. Bez Hashem Yisbarach, Lineder. We were zoichet to finish the second pair of Nazir, and now we'll start the third pair. So this
Yosy, just a question. Is the Gemara ending agreeing with Rabbi Yosy and saying that these are the only cases you could have as a Gedola, or is it just explaining Rabbi Yosy?
It's just explaining Rabbi Yosy. We don't necessarily hold like Rabbi Yosy. I don't know how Allah L'maisa would be passing like Rabbi Yosy. I don't know that, we don't. But often the Poskim say, since the Gemara went out of its way to explain a certain shita, it must be they hold like it. But I don't know 100%. The Oish is by Rabbi Oishia, so Rabbi Oishia is learning like Rabbi Yosy. Yeah. Okay. So let's see the Gemara back. Misha Amar Hareni Nazir. Someone said Hareni Nazir. So the Allah is Megaleach Yom Shloshim Ve'echad. He's Megaleach Yom Shloshim Ve'echad. And if you remember, this is really totally in Rab Masna. Remember, we had a Machlokes bin Bar Pada who said Stam Nazir is 29 days, and Rab Masna who said Stam Nazir is 30 days. So the question that we asked at the beginning of the Masechta, when we quoted Bar Pada, who says Nazir is 29 days, why are you Megalech Yom Shloshim Ve'echad? Why can't you be Megalech on Yom Shloshim if the Nazir is over? So the Gemara told us back there, that Bar Pada is Goizer Otto a Stam Naziris, which when someone says Hareni Nazir, that's 29 days. But often someone says Hareni Nazir Shloshim Yoim. So because of that, even a 29 day Naziris, you should do Giluach on day 31. But if you were Megalech on Yom Shloshim Yotza, according to Bar Pada, you're Yotza, because 29 days is a term of Naziris, and therefore on day 30 you could make Giluach. And according to Rab Masna, you need 30 days. Rab Masna held Mixas Hayom Kukuloi. Bar Pada didn't hold the Mixas Hayom Kukuloi, but he holds that 29 days is in Naziris. Rab Masna held that 30 days is in Naziris, but Mixas Hayom Kukuloi, therefore, once you're in the 30th day, you could make Giluach. What if someone said the Farish, Hareni Nazir Shloshim Yom? I'm a Nazir for 30 days. Then in Gilach Liyom Shloshim Lo Yotza. Then if he made Giluach on day 30, he's not Yotza. You know why? Because if he says Shloshim Yom, he means 30 full days, according to Rav Masna. So he specified, I don't want mixed Yom Kulai. I want 30 full days. That's what it means when someone says, I already know the Shloshim Yom. And the Gemara told us earlier, what's Pshat? Because if I wanted to stop being a Nazir for 30 days, I would have said already Nazir. Every time Nazir is 30 days. The fact that I spoke on already Nazir Shloshim Yoim shows that I want a full 30 days. I don't want to rely on Mixas Yom Kippur. And according to Bar Pada, he doesn't know the Mixas Yom Kippur. So therefore, if he said 30 days, it's 30 full days. Misha Nazir Shtei Naziris. What if someone accepted upon himself 2 Naziris, 2 consecutive Naziris? So the halacha is Megaleches Harishona Yom Shloshim Bechad. Lechatchila, everybody agrees that the first Naziris, he should do the Giluach on day 31. Day 31 will also be day 1 of the second Naziris, and therefore is a Shnia Yom Shishim Bechad. The day 31 of the second Naziris will be day 61. But if he did his Giluach on the 30th day, which we said works with the Evet, now he could already count day 30 as day 1 of his second Naziris. So then lechatchila megaleches hashnia yom shishim, because yom shishim will now be day 31 of his second Naziris. V'imgilach yom shishim chaser achas. What if he was megalech on day 59, which is only day 30 of the second Naziris? Well, then yotza, he's yotza anyway, for the same reason. Why, if he makes Giluach on day 30 for a regular Naziris, it's day 30. V'zu edus heid Rav Papayis. This is the edus that Rav Papayis said, Al Misha Nazir Shtei Naziris. Someone who's Makabal upon himself 2 Naziris, Shem Gilach Hasarishona Yom Shloishim, if he wrongfully terminated the first Naziris on day 30, then Megalech Hashniya, then Lechatchila, he could be Megalech the Shniya on, let me see the Gimel, Yom Shishim, on the 60th day. Vim Gilach Liyom Shishim, why? Because that will end up being day 31. Vim Gilach Liyom Shishim Chaser Echad, but if you did Giluach on day 59, which is day 30 of the second Naziris, Yotza Yom Yotza, Sheyom Shel Shloishim, Oila Loy Min HaMinyan. Day 30, which he made his Giluach from his first Naziris on, we also count that second half of the day as day 1 for his next Naziris. Right. So the Gemara earlier says this is a different. Here, everybody holds Mixas Yom Kippur because you have 2 Naziris. You don't have Mixas Yom Kippur. The shaila of whether or not you say Mixas Yom Kippur of Rav is a different shaila. Zok the Gemara back to Misha Amar Hareni Nazir. What if someone Hareni Nazir Nitma Yom Shloshim and he became Tameh on day 30? The lach is Soiser Esakol. It's Soiser the entire Naziris. Rabbi Eliezer says, now Soiser Esakol, let's think about it. According to Bar Pada, why is it Soiser Esakol? It's only 29 days. So we're going to see that is a Durabanan. Right? Rav Masna is Soiser in the Torah, and Lo Bar Pada, it's only Durabanan, because really at day 29 finish it. But it's Gzeira. It's a Gzeira because many times people are Makabal Naziris for 30 days, so it's only a Gzeira. Okay? So that's what Soiser is called. But no, it's only Soiser Shiva, meaning it's not Soiser Shakoil. And it's not Soiser Shiva. It's not like you have to count 7 days of Naziris. Your Naziris is over. What he means, Soiser Shiva, is he cannot bring his Karbanis for another week now because he's Tameh. So he has to wait to go through the process of Tahira. So it's delaying it 7 days, but it's not really being Soiser. Hareni Nazir Shloshim Yom. What if someone says, I want to be a Nazir for 30 days? So there, Nitmi Yom Shloshim Soiser Shakoil. There already, he says, I want 30 full days. According to Rav Masna, it means 30 full days because he spoke on Shloshim. According to Bar Pada, you don't say Mixas Yom Kippur. So if he became Tameh on day 30, that's called being Tameh in the middle of his Naziris. Soiser Shakoil. Hareni Nazir Mea Yom. What if someone said, I want to be a Nazir for 100 days? Nitma Yom Mea, if he became Tameh on day 100, Soiser Shakoil. Rabbi Eliezer Amar Eina Soiser Ela Shloshim. It will only be Soiser Shloshim. And we had a pasuk that says that if someone becomes Tameh on the last day, it's Betama only one cycle of Naziris. Nitma Yoy Mea Ve'echad. What if he became Tameh on day 101, which is after his Naziris is completely counted? Soiser Shloshim Yoim is what the Tanakama holds. Rabbi Eliezer Amar Eina Soiser Ela Shiva. Once again, it's not Soiser at all, but you have to wait 7 days until you're able to bring your Karbanos. We'll just learn one more line. Misham already Nazir v'nitna Yom Shloshim Soiser Sakoil. Rabbi Eliezer Omer Ein Soiser Ela Shiva. So the Gemara is going to delve into that machlokes. Okay, we'll stop here and we'll be mamshech tomorrow. So we're an amud ahead. If I could learn a blot and a half tomorrow, then we would have covered Thursday's blot as well, and then we'll just resume Friday morning. Okay, everyone have a wonderful day.
You're traveling tomorrow.
I'm leaving at 8 o'clock tomorrow.